welcome to D32 Business Podcast. Today I am speaking with Norma Falconer of Think Capital. How are you, Norma?
I'm great, Lorraine. How are you doing?
Really, really well, thank you. And thank you for being on the podcast today. I think it's, you are, just to give some context to the conversation today, you're a financial planner. And I've heard from different financial planners over the years, as you do, and I'm always learning. I'm always learning about, the unexpected that we just could not possibly have thought about. So we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to give people advice, or you are, on super and knowing numbers and planning for the unexpected. So that's the context of the podcast. But Norma, how did you get started with Think Capital? How did you end up in the financial planning industry? Where did that come from?
Yeah. So it's a story that I don't tell very often, but here we are. I grew up in an average middle class family. My father worked as a boilermaker initially, and then progressed to being a draftsman. And my mother was a stay-at-home mother, so typically middle class family. I was the eldest. My brother and sister were much younger than I was, and we were on our way to our annual holiday over Easter, and we had a car accident, and my father died on that day over Easter. And in that same car accident, I'm very proud of myself. I'm actually getting through the story so far, so good. And in that same car accident, my mother became a quadriplegic. So
Wow.
The essence of that is that at 16, I became the head of my home, essentially, because despite the fact that my mother was still alive, she was actually on a heart machine and on a lung machine for 2 years. So despite the fact that my mother was alive, she wasn't really part of our family or able to guide us or tell us what to do. So essentially, my brother and my sister and I, so my brother was 11 and my sister was 9 and I was 16 at the time. So we were essentially left to our own devices, as strange as that sounds. And my parents were 39 when this situation changed everybody's lives. And, at 39, you're kind of forever young, sort of. And my parents had done the right things in terms of setting things up. So, they had the normal things, a home, a mortgage. My dad had just started his own business, and they had life insurance. They had set up their wills, but they hadn't signed it. They never signed their wills. And
Wow.
that left us very, very vulnerable. And then, of course, left me in a position where I needed to learn so much about so many things that I, didn't want to be learning at that age. So that's how my journey started. As traumatic as it is, what it has done is it gave me an obsession, a passion, and a total desire to make sure that everybody that I know that is in my frame and in my center of influence doesn't experience the same kind of trauma, if you want to call it that, because it is traumatic. It doesn't matter whether it's all ordered or not ordered. It's a lot more difficult when there's chaos and not order. So I think that's kind of what put me on my life's journey. So that's all.
Huge.
It is. It's a big way. It is. But I have no regrets. I'm kind of 75% of my life is lived, and I've got maybe 25% left. Oh, so sorry. So it's important for me that I've left a legacy that has significance. And I'd like to think that through serving others and working in the role that I do has helped other families to get their stuff together. Goodness. Sorry about that, Lorraine.
Thank you, Norma. And that will connect with people,
Yeah.
Your why is very unique to you. It's very precious to you. Your story and your journey and your passion for wanting to make sure that others are looked after in the event of these situations, that it makes a difference when people can connect with your why. So thank you very much for sharing that and allowing yourself to go there. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that after our catch-ups. So that you're learning something new every day.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's your why. You've now got this business that you're growing, that you're investing in, you're learning all things business. I speak to
Yeah,
you. You've got a vision for this business, you've got a vision for this legacy, which is fantastic.
yeah,
And I'd love for you to share just some of the insights that you can, little nuggets that people can walk away with today so that they're
yeah,
not in that situation. Yeah.
yeah,
And one of the first things you were going to talk about, Norma, was super.
yeah. It's a I speak to probably 200 people a year, and I'm still amazed by how people ignore super. So other than your home, as an ordinary employed individual, other than your home, maybe your business, other than your home and your business, the other most significant asset you own in Australia specifically is your super, and globally your retirement fund. But how frequently I will speak to somebody who has no understanding of what super is, how it works, how much is in there, where it's invested, what it's doing. So I would say get to know your super. That statement comes for a reason. Take the time to invest in super. And if that's too hard or if your brain shuts down, then, obviously speak to somebody that knows more than you do. And you can ring your super fund. And there are, super funds have advisors. There's lots of data online, but get to know the investment that you have, your longest term investment. Yeah.
And I think, Norma, on the back of there, when I was so I'm an immigrant, so I didn't even know
Yeah.
what super was, right? And then I started
Yeah.
working for someone else and I moved around jobs and they would tell me to move my
Yes.
super over. And I'm like, what are you talking about, move my super over? I've got no idea what you're talking about. And then I
Yeah.
learned that there was this pension fund and I'd moved them into one. And then I think I was told, use this one because you can log on to a dashboard and you can see and you can choose some of the places it goes. I'm like, right, I'll do that. And then you move into business and you learn, well, actually, you want to do this and you can get some of your insurance through your super and you can do this through your super if you just speak to an expert. And then now we're learning, okay, when you get to a certain level, you can have a self-managed super fund and use your own investments. So this stuff is many people just don't know what's available.
And the essence of it is that the superannuation system in Australia is one of the most tax-friendly systems in the world. So not only so at its core, superannuation is a tax structure. That's what it is. It's a tax-friendly structure. While you're accumulating your investments, your investments are being taxed at a tax rate of 15%. It's the most tax-effective vehicle in Australia. And when you reach preservation age, which generally speaking is currently 60, you can withdraw your income and your investments at zero tax. It's an incredibly powerful tax structure. But more than that, as you contribute into super, the government is giving you an incentive by making the contributions that you put into super up to a certain limit, and currently that's $30,000. But what you put into super is a deductible from your taxable income. And the consequence of that is, let's assume that you're a high income earner or that you're doing well in your business and your income tax rate is, let's say, 35%, which is still lower than the highest tax rate, which is 47% plus Medicare levy. When you make money, when you contribute into super, you drop your tax rate from, let's say, 47 or 35% all the way down. That money is now being taxed at 15%, not at 47 or 35. It's a huge, huge, huge tax structure. And then, of course, once you've crossed the tax line, then it's important to know the things like you've just said. What exactly am I investing in? And yes, it's also got to do with product, i.e., company A, company B, and there are three different types of superannuation overall as a high level solution. You've got industry super, which everybody knows. You've got retail super, which is generally advised, and then a self-managed super fund, which then requires a lot more commitment and I would say sophistication to manage. Yeah.
There's a
And
lot
then,
to learn there, but it's about if anyone is just
yeah,
sitting fence and it's just sitting there doing nothing, there's more can be done. There's a lot more can be done.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you just lift the lid.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And the other thing also is because superannuation is a compulsory contributory structure for employers and employees, the eighth wonder of the world is compound growth. So you can accumulate in your 20s, for example, as somebody that starts working early in Australia, you can accumulate, let's say, $100,000 in your super in your 20s, and then not work again and have the same level of capital in your super as an immigrant that starts in their 40s and contributes significantly up until, let's say, 60. So a 20-year-old can have more or the same capital contributing for 10 years and then not again, because of the growth and the very, very tax-friendly solution. And then, of course, there are the other things, the insurance and that kind of thing, but we'll cover off on that a little bit later when we talk about risk mitigation.
So another thing that you wanted to talk about then was just really knowing your numbers. So again,
Yes.
what does that mean? What does that mean?
Oh, it's so interesting. So when we work with our clients, whether it's through the coaching solutions that we provide or whether it's through the financial planning solutions that we provide, I'm always surprised when people go, oh, I never knew that I spend so much on registration, for example, on rego. I never knew that so much of my money was going to regos. Then they've got a few vehicles, some of them are roadworthy, some of them are not. It's about that. So we always hear the analogy that cash is king, but from my perspective, cash flow is king. And cash flow is understanding where it starts and understanding where it ends. And it's really knowing what it is that's flowing and where it's going to. And again, in Australia, primarily, most roads lead to super. Even if you have a business or a home or property investments, at the outset, at the outcome, all of these things, employment, property in your own name, or even in a trust, or even in a structure or a business entity, anything else that you own or possess in your name or any other structure is a tax structure. It will always be taxed forever. Whereas superannuation is the only tax structure where the tax becomes zero at preservation age 60. The money eventually becomes zero at super. So know your numbers, know where your money's flowing, know where the outcome needs to be. And very, very few people know where the money is going to land in the end. Very few. Yeah.
It's always food for thought, isn't it? Now, I know you're going to share some stories with us because I like hearing stories of how,
Yes.
But just before we get into that, and I guess this will weave in, right? Because you also wanted to just point out to people that explore the idea of preparing for the unexpected, right? Because the unexpected is going to happen. So can you just tell us a little bit about that, Norma, and then maybe share some stories that you can share with us?
Yeah. So preparing for the unexpected is a little bit where you kind of came at, yes, I can get superannuation I can get insurance inside of super. So from our perspective, we look at cash flow, making sure that the money is going to land in the right places. We look at wealth creation, which is all of those things that we've just pretty much discussed, of which superannuation is a vital part of wealth creation. And then preparing for the unexpected. So preparing for the unexpected is exactly that kind of thing. Taking care of your family, taking care of your ability to earn income. And we do that. We mitigate that through insurance. Statistically speaking, Australians have more insurance for things like motor vehicles, furniture, and structures than what they do for themselves. There's a much bigger gap on insuring lives and ability to earn income than what there is on your vehicle. Now, I don't know about you, but in my mind, our ability to earn income is a lot more important than our ability to replace our vehicles, and yet that's what people insure. So in life insurance or personal insurance is a vital component of a balanced risk mitigation strategy. As a business owner, or as an employed individual or anybody that's earning money. And then obviously I'm obsessed with estate planning, right? So in my world, we make very, very sure that that our clients have their estate plan structures in place. Now, what I find often is that somebody might, for example, hear what you and I are talking about today and then get themselves a will. But most times that will it can't be executed because there's a blended family where something hasn't been considered, or there's a business where something hasn't been considered. So, and I hear the question often, but there are post office wills and, there are wills online. Yes, there are. But unless you understand what the pitfalls are, what the shortfalls are, and lawyers will tell you, all of the lawyers that we work with, they love wills that are drafted without advice, because those are the ones where it gets messy when it's got to be wound up. You know what I mean? So from our perspective, or from your perspective, from anybody hearing us today, it's vital to make sure that your family is protected, that your risk is mitigated, and all of the work that you've done, every effort that you've put into building a legacy of some sort, make sure that that is allocated, bequeathed, and given away in a way that is sensible. Avoid the conflict, avoid the drama. Don't leave your family with anxiety and chaos. Leave them with order. Make sure that you've got a good legacy. So yeah, my subject matter is always very dark and dull. We try to
very
make it
real. We're not evading it. We're all going there.
Yeah. We try and make it light and easy, but it's not always that way. Yeah.
But that's definitely one area, where it's really important to know what you don't know. And know that you don't know all the answers. You don't know the pitfalls of a will. You don't know what having a trust means on that will. You don't know. We just don't know,
Yeah.
And so, Norma, you've shared with me a few stories, and they're also in the D32 anthology book. And I would just love to hear a few of these. How have you changed people's lives through your own business? And again, just weave in how you help them plan for the unexpected.
Yeah. So on a base level, I often get asked, so what is your minimum, what is the minimum amount of money that we must have to, for example, work with somebody like us? Now, a lot of advisors do have minimum investable asset requirements. It can be anything from $250,000 upwards in money. That's not the way that our firm works. Our firm works on, tell me your story, tell me how it works, and then let's see what we can do to make it, to shift it. So on a base level, we had a client that came to us, a business owner, was in transition in their marriage, and a very, very sensible business owner, to be fair, makes decisions very prudently, kind of thinks things through. And the question was, what do I do if things don't work for us? They were in therapy, they were really trying everything, but what do I do? And the truth was, at that moment in time, they couldn't afford to get divorced. I always say, if you can do what you can do to solve things inside of a relationship, a long-term relationship, do what you can, because it is expensive to split up. You've got to start over from a financial perspective. But in this client's instance, unfortunately, it didn't work out. And when they came to us, the money in super, and I'm using this as a specific example to kind of touch on the points that we've covered off.
Yeah.
But the money in super was $80,000 in 2022. And as of this morning, that client, despite the fact that they got divorced, despite the fact that they have been needing to manage their numbers very closely, know where the cash flow is going, the mortgage is lower, the house is in their name, their business is thriving, their super balance as of today is $206,000, and that's in 2 years. And that is as a result of good strategy and also, good investment. Obviously, you've got to manage the investment appropriately. But that's just one example of a specific measurable outcome. So in 2 years, what are we? 22 August they came to us. So 23, 24. So call
That's
it
substantial.
Yeah. So call it 30 months or so. So that's not bad. It's more than double. Another client, for example. Because we tend to, obviously because of my specific, if you want to call it, drive around bringing order to chaos, and because of the way that we set up estate planning structures, a client was referred to us very, very ill, terminally. The superannuation balance at the time was maybe $300,000, but we knew that this client was ill. We understood the mandate: make sure my family is protected, make sure my family is taken care of. And you're right, that story is in the D32 anthology. But the truth of it is that now, our client has passed away, and we are now the advisors to his family. But the legacy that he has left, whenever I speak to his wife, the only thing that we are always, our conversations always close on, I'm so grateful to my husband for looking out for us, for making sure we're okay. And so what I'm trying to say is we don't just work with the very, very wealthy. We're working with everyday Australians. But because of our commitment and because of their commitment to learn, to be asked the difficult questions, to answer those difficult questions. We've worked with families where the son was referred to us. And the reason was my mom, who had, I want to say, $160,000 in super. Let's just go with that, okay? She is 50. And now, son comes to us, mother is 50. The super fund that she was in, the money that was in her super was a division of a divorce. Okay, so now she's eligible for it because it's a defined benefit fund. And I know I'm speaking a little bit technical, but you can't just access that money. It has to stay there. He says to me, the client says, protect my mother, who is on disability pension. She would never have got help anywhere else. She was under the investable assets and she wasn't earning. She's on Centrelink. She's on disability pension. My brother is also on disability pension. He'll never be able to work. And I've got a young family. So make sure that my family is protected, and my mother and my brother. And make sure that in my responsibility to my mother and my brother, that doesn't affect this family, this young family that I'm invested in. It took us a lot of thinking, asking, leveraging of enormous skill and resources in Australia. And we've built a financial plan where he's in a better position. So is his brother, so is his mother. And that's that's what questions do. Questions go, can we try this? Can we try that? And now they're all safe and financially better. It can also look like, clients that come to us that say, tell me the unknowns. And we've got very analytical clients as well, highly, highly, highly sophisticated, very intelligent people. But on their own, it's a plan we delivered on Saturday, actually. This client on his own, he will end at 35 million. That's a lot of money. But as a result of the way that we do our advice and the questions that we ask, he will now end at 45 million. And he said there was this whole component between 50 and 60 that he didn't know. So what we've done, the way that we've set it up for him, is that from age 50 to age 60, he will also have income at zero tax. And that is what's unlocked the 10 million extra equity that he would never have found on his own. And that is what he said. You showed me what I never knew. And that's why we get advice. I mean, it's like anything really, Lorraine. I feel like I've spoken a
Yeah.
lot now. I hope those
No,
stories were helpful.
I think it's fantastic. So a couple of things, that I picked up through there is first, yeah, $10 million a lot of money. And so is going from 80 to 200, right? These can really make significant changes in our lives. But also we've woven through there is how that wife would have felt when she was saying to you, thank her husband for looking after us. It's not just from a financial point of view, but actually the husband is taking care of them by having you as the advisor to walk them through that and talk to them about and let them know what's happening and what's available and make sure that that's interpreted and understood. And that's a whole different thing than there's very different from, oh, look, we've got $1 million in the bank or $10 million in the bank, we've been looked after. There's a difference between that and then a level of care that's actually coming through an advisor who's speaking on behalf of. There's a whole other level of being looked after, So yeah, I think that's it's just fantastic. I absolutely loved reading the chapter on your stories. It was really fantastic. So Norma, what would you like to say to people, around how would you like to finish off, particularly around that planning?
Yeah. Okay. There are many advisors in Australia, many. I want to say pick well. There's 15,500 advisors in Australia. Not everybody works on the same system or process. Pick well. And if you are picking well, try and pick it from who is actually where's the legacy going to be left? There's a $3.5 trillion wealth transfer that's going to happen in the next 10 years from baby boomers to millennials. Generation X kind of gets skipped a little, but there is this huge wealth transfer. So be clear around who is receiving it. And I mean, there's that old adage around the first generation makes it, the second generation, they earn it, and then the third generation loses it all,
Yeah.
So set up structures that are mindful of where the inheritance is going to land in the long run. And I guess that's all about. That's what it is really. It's about being intentional. I think that's what in every layer of the hard facts that we've discussed. And the hard facts are know your numbers, get to know your super, protect your risk, and leave a legacy of order, not chaos. Those are the hard facts. But through all of that, I think if you are intentional where your money is flowing, intentional where it's landing, intentional in the legacy that you set up, and mindful around that, cognizant of the fact that not everybody has your level of expertise or sophistication or knowing or knowledge or networks even. And what is it that you are leaving behind? Because we find it a lot where one of the decision makers in a relationship is very, very sophisticated around money. But they actually, instead of leaving a legacy of wealth, they're actually leaving a legacy of vulnerability because the structure is too overwhelming, too complicated, and too complex for the survivor to even know where to start. So that would be my final thought is, where are you and who are you actually looking after? What's it all for, really, is the question. What's it all for? And once you understand what it's all for, then you can start to be mindful around, okay, I need to set up certain structures for certain purpose. And philanthropy is a big one. I believe that Bill Gates is going to be, his legacy is 99% of his wealth will be applied to various philanthropic purposes. So I'm using him as an example as like one of the mightiest billionaires on the planet. So that's what it is. And it doesn't matter whether your legacy is 80,000 or 800 billion. It's irrelevant. what is important is the intention with where it goes. Your money must flow with intention and mindfulness.
There's a certain sense of comfort that comes when you know that structure's in place.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Security blanket.
Yeah. And then you can, leave the planet in peace. Yeah. Not pieces.
Yeah.
She said, keep
that one down.
I did.
Norma, thank you very much for sharing your story with us, for sharing your why, your legacy, your passion for helping others to do so the same. And thank you for sharing your tips. Hopefully this is going to inspire or educate or give a few insights to people who are ready to create that sense of security and stability around the finances.
And Lorraine, from my side, thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for what you've created to give people like me an opportunity to share the work that we do and the people that we help. So thank you for what you've created in District 32.
Thank you very much, Norma. Much appreciated.
All right. Talk soon.
Bye.